Hello, M&A Advisor community. Welcome to the M&A Advisor podcast. I'm Roger Aguinaldo, the creator and CEO of the M&A Advisor. Join me as I connect with leading experts in mergers and acquisitions, distressed investing, restructuring, and finance, especially international and globally. Stay tuned. This episode promises to be a truly epic one. We're now T-minus 7 days from the 2024 Leadership and Deal-Making Summit, happening on September 23rd and 24th at the New York Athletic Club in New York City. This event will highlight innovation, excellence, and strategic foresight in mergers and acquisitions, emphasizing visionary leadership, collaborative strategies, and new approaches shaping global deal-making. It's a premier opportunity to engage with key industry trends and the future of mergers and acquisitions. As we delve into innovation and strategic leadership, it's essential to highlight the voices that are shaping the future of global deal-making. In this spirit, we're excited to introduce a distinguished thought leader in international mergers and acquisitions, whose expertise goes beyond conventional industry limits and is redefining business models. Let's give a warm welcome to Ricardo Lacerda from BR Partners. Hi, Ricardo.
Hi, Roger. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Well, great to have you. We're calling in from Brazil and Sao Paulo.
Absolutely. Yes, I'm in my office in São Paulo, so great to join you.
Yeah. Well, listen, let me just give you a little bit of a background on Ricardo, because, it's a very, very impressive background. And, as we talk, you'll figure out why we really wanted to have him on our podcast. And will be one of the featured speakers at the Leadership and Deal-Making Summit. So Ricardo is the CEO and founding partner at BR Partners, Banco de Investimento SA, located in Sao Paulo, Brazil, since November 2009. Prior to establishing BR Partners, he was managing director, head of investment banking Brazil, and the head of LATAM at Citi from December 2005 to November 2009. Ricardo also previously worked at Goldman Sachs as the CEO in Brazil and managing director investment banking from January 2002 to November 2005, and as a vice president from August 96 to January 2002. His work experience spans investment banking, mergers and acquisitions, corporate finance, capital markets, and business strategy. Ricardo earned a Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Administration and an MBA in Finance from FGV Fundação Getúlio Vargas. I hope I said that correctly.
Fundação Getúlio Vargas, yes.
Okay. You could do that better than me. He holds an MBA with specialization in finance from Columbia Business School at Columbia University. I think I said that correctly. So please join me in congratulating Ricardo and his team at BR Partners for their upcoming win of 3 awards at the 2024 Leadership and Deal-Making Summit. That's the International M&A Awards, namely Investment Banker of the Year in South America, Investment Banking Firm of the Year in South America, and the Cross-Border Deal of the Year, $1 billion to $10 billion, the acquisition of Emil by Jose Serapieri Filho. Yet another great reason to celebrate at our event next week. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please join me in welcome Ricardo Lacerda. Welcome to the show, Ricardo.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Okay, well, listen, let's just tell us what BR Partners is, what you do. Congratulations on these wins, and what kind of makes BR Partners a different kind of investment bank.
Okay, great. So BR Partners is a local Brazilian investment bank founded in 2009 by myself and several other partners. We started basically as an M&A boutique focused on mergers and acquisitions and other advisory transactions. But we also raised capital with wealthy Brazilian families back in 2010, and we applied for a local banking license. So in 2013, we received the full approval from the Central Bank of Brazil to become a full-fledged financial institution. And since then, we have been growing, and we focus today on investment banking, advisory, M&A, debt restructuring, board services, strategic capital markets. We also have a local capital markets operations of excellence. So we focus a lot on the DCM side of the business. Our third area is cash management and treasury services for clients. And also, we started last year to focus on wealth management for wealthy individuals in Brazil and Latin America.
Okay, so it seems like you're building up to be from a sort of a boutique investment bank to more full service for mostly clients in Brazil.
Absolutely. So our idea was to basically have a full range of services for our clients, which include, to use a word that people like nowadays. Our ecosystem is one of large corporations, entrepreneurs, top executives, and investors in Brazil. So we're talking about 1,500 to 2,000 names at the top of the Brazilian economy. And what we want to do is to serve these names and these clients with a wide range of products. And we have been consistently building our franchise around this ecosystem with more and more services. We have now a 15-year history. We have been very active in the advisory on the advisory front. We received many awards through those 15 years, and also always ranked at the top of Brazilian M&A rankings. But as we started to develop our franchise, we also focused on other financial services such as capital markets, cash management, wealth management, and treasury services.
Well, look. I think after 15 years, you're now at the pinnacle, winning an M&A Advisor Award.
Absolutely. I think we're very happy with that. Throughout these 15 years, it has been a very interesting run. As I said, we raised capital from Brazilian wealthy families in 2010 as a seed money for our business. We then grew the company, as I mentioned, with different products and services. And in 2001, we took BR Partners public in the Brazilian Stock Exchange, B3. And since then, we've been also a listed company from the past 3.5 years, which has also been a very interesting
So
time for us.
2020, 2021, you
2021, yes.
right. I was doing my math. I think you incorrectly said 2001, and I said,
No,
that's more than
2021. Sorry. Yeah.
2020. No, that's okay. That's fine. And this is all live. So we're
Okay.
2021. You went public, and now now you're a public company in Brazil.
Exactly. We are a public company in Brazil, listed since June 2021.
Yeah. Okay. Well, congratulations on that. It's hard to take a company public, much less your own, right? As an investment banking firm.
Exactly. I mean, these are a lot of challenges that we have to go through, and setting up the company. As you know, Brazil has a very high degree of mortality for companies in early stages. So going through the first few years, getting our name out there, getting clients, growing revenues, being profitable. Obviously, being well placed in the rankings and with a good reputation with clients. But I would say our biggest challenge was to really take the company public, and especially a company that is still relatively small. So we are a small cap company listed in Brazil, but that brought us a lot of advantages also in terms of governance, in terms of presence in the market, in terms of transparency, and it's been a very interesting process.
So you get, would presume you for now being public, more access to capital so you can grow. Is that why you You
Absolutely,
know?
yes. We raised only primary capital in our IPO, which was good to enable our growth. Part of our business is more capital intensive, as I mentioned. We are a full-fledged financial institution, and we act in local capital markets in Brazil on the debt capital market side. So raising, having access to capital and growing the capital base that we had originally from the wealthy families, and then from the profits that we accumulated, was something very important for us and very key for the continued growth of the company.
Yeah. So did I guess those wealthy families didn't exit? They stayed in, all rolled into the IPO.
Yeah, we raised 100 million reals at the time in 2010 from 10
That sounds
wealthy
like a lot.
families.
That sounds like a lot. What
Yeah,
is that in US dollars?
well,
What's
in
that?
US dollars at the time, it was around $50 million.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
So basically, we raised around $50 million, which was enough for us to apply for the license with the central bank and also to start the company. We were immediately very profitable because we were more focused at the time in the advisory business, which obviously doesn't need a lot of capital. But as we applied for the license and then received the license, we started operating as a full-fledged financial institutions, and we started building our presence in local capital markets and also other treasury services for clients. And by the time that we went public in 2021, we had grown that capital base of 100 million reals originally to 350 million. And in our IPO, we raised another 400 million reals. So today, we have a total capital close to 900 million reals, which is about $150 million. And we have paid basically over 65% dividends over time throughout our 15-year history. So this, highlights how profitable and successful the company has been. We have a return on equity compounded of around 22% in the past 15 years. And we also have a top line growth in revenues of around 25% over the same period of time. So it's been a very good combination of growth and profitability for us.
Well, congratulations with that. You also have a wealth management side. What's your assets under management on the wealth management side?
Our assets under management, we just started it last October. So that's the last sort of leg that we have implemented. We have grown over time in terms of different, setting up different areas one at a time in order to combine growth with profitability. So the last area that we started, was our wealth management department. It started in October of last year, so a little short of 1 year. And we have about 5 billion reals of assets under management, which is close to $1 billion.
Hey, deal makers and industry leaders, are you ready to make deal connections, meet like-minded deal makers, and celebrate with the best in the mergers and acquisitions industry? I'm Roger Aguinaldo, creator and CEO of the M&A Advisor, and I invite you to mark your calendars for the 2024 Leadership in Deal Making Summit. This event will feature the prestigious awards gala for the 15th Annual Emerging Leaders Awards and the 15th Annual International M&A Awards on September 23rd and 24th, 2024 at the iconic New York Athletic Club in the heart of New York City. This is your chance to meet with the trailblazers who are shaping the future of global mergers and acquisitions. And this event is a gift that keeps on giving. We are thrilled to honor Paul Aversano, the managing director at Alvarez and Marsal, with the 2024 Leadership Award. Paul's dedication and expertise have set a new standard in our industry, and we can't wait to celebrate his achievements. And the excitement doesn't stop there. Former U.S. Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross will be a co-chair of the event and an esteemed featured guest speaker. Be here when we dive deep into the latest trends, strategies, and innovations with Wilbur Ross and the top experts from around the globe. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting your journey in mergers and acquisitions, this summit will change your life and the trajectory of your career. So don't miss out on this incredible opportunity to elevate your game and expand your network. Visit www.maadvisor.com. It's MAADVISOR.com today to register and secure your spot at the 2024 Leadership in Dealmaking Summit. See you in New York on September 23rd and 24th. The Leadership of Dealmaking awaits. Yeah, good for you. Good for you. Well, Ricardo, congratulations. Congratulations. How many people now work for BR Partners?
200 people.
Okay. And how many in that? So let's dial it down at the M&A side, right? Because most of our people are sort of M&A. How many people in the M&A sort of boutique side of
Around 40 people we have
40
today,
people.
40 to 45
and
people.
you basically started the company with that, or more advisory consulting? What did you start the company as?
We started the company basically myself and one other fellow in an office that we borrowed from a client of ours because at the time, there was not a lot of office space available in São Paulo. So we started basically as an M&A advisory firm, very small, and then in the year that followed, we put together our business plan. We raised the capital from the Brazilian wealthy families, and also we brought the initial founding partners, which were people that worked for other global organizations, and they had garden leaves, and they were sort of disconnecting from their previous employers, and they started joining us at the beginning of 2010. And by around middle of 2010, we had the core of our finding partners. We had the capital, and then we were able to get our first office around September of 2010, and basically start working on the other areas in addition to the M&A advisory business. So we started as a pure advisory firm, M&A boutique, but we had from the beginning the aspiration of being a full-fledged financial institution and being able to serve our clients in Brazil more broadly. So that's the reason we raised the capital. We applied for the license. We put
a
the
number
business.
of people. Yeah, no, this wonderful. A number of people sort of want to aspire and be inspired by you to, we have a number of emerging leaders, those who are going to be recognized, those usually, earlier part of their career, maybe 10, 15 years into their M&A career, potentially aspire to be where you're at. Let's go back to the beginning. So then you're at Columbia University. Okay. You're getting your MBA. Did you say to yourself, I got to jump on that M&A bandwagon? Tell me kind of what happened to that, and what was your first job after that? And I did see, and I described you being at Goldman Sachs for quite a few years, and then Citi, right?
Yeah. Let me just start a little bit earlier than that.
Okay.
I've been spending my entire career in banking, and I went also to college studying business, and then a master's in finance in Brazil. So I started my career as a credit analyst at Chase Manhattan Bank in Brazil. That was back in 1988, and I was doing credit analysis.
Those were, by the way, those were good programs, right? They really,
yeah, exactly.
Those
so
were hard to get into, too.
Exactly.
Very competitive.
So the Chase training program for credit analysts at the time was equivalent to an MBA. It was around several months in New York, which was my first working experience in New York. So it was a great experience, great to learn, the basics of analytics at banking and credit analysis. I think is something that is very important throughout the entire career of a banker. So it was an experience that was fantastic. I stayed with Chase for a few years, and then I applied for an MBA at many different schools, but the one that I felt more interesting for what I wanted to do, which was to transition from a more analytical job, commercial banking, into investment banking, was Columbia, because obviously it's very strong in finance and also based in New York. So um, New York has always been by far the center with most connection to Latin America and to Brazil specifically. So I took my MBA there, which was a great experience. Something that I really enjoyed, and I remain connected to the school up until today. But I graduated from the MBA in 1996, and I took a job initially as an investment banker at Bear Stearns, which at the time was the most active in Brazil and Latin America. Bear Stearns had done a lot of deals,
Now
including.
you grew up in Brazil, right?
I
Did you
grew
grow
up
up
in Brazil. Yes, I
in
was
Sao
born.
Paulo?
I was born in the interior of São Paulo, in a small town in the interior of São Paulo, and not so small today, but at the time, was a city with 100+ thousand people. And then I moved to São Paulo to come for high school and college.
Now, were
Uh,
your parents, were they in finance? I mean, were your
no, no,
parents or family
my
members?
family is a family of many lawyers. So a lot of people are lawyers, some are politicians, but mostly lawyers. And I
Lawyers
grew
and
up.
politicians. Okay,
Yeah,
you didn't go that track.
no, I didn't. At least the lawyer one, I have not gone. Maybe the politician one day, but
Oh,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
yeah.
No, but basically, I was supposed to be a lawyer also, and I grew up thinking that I would go to law school. But as I sort of developed my studies and my and looked at what I would do, I felt that I was more of a numbers guy, and I also liked finance. Always liked it. So I transitioned into business and finance, and I think it was the right decision for me to do that. And I went to school in São Paulo for my undergrad, and then also for a graduate degree in finance before I moved to New York.
Okay, so then you're in New York, you're at Bear Stearns, and so
I was
from
at Bear
Bear
Stearns because Bear Stearns at the time was the premier investment bank in Latin America. Bear Stearns started earlier than many of the other firms, and I basically chose Bear Stearns because of that. But then a year plus later, I was invited by Goldman to join the investment banking division in New York, which is something that I did, and it was a great experience. Goldman is a fantastic firm, obviously, and a great learning experience. And I was in New York up until a little after September 11. September 11 was obviously very difficult times after that, and Goldman had to make some changes, and they asked me to move back to Brazil to become head of the Brazilian office. So it was also a great experience for me because at the time I was relatively young. I was 33, 34 years old. I was a senior vice president in the investment banking division. It was a great experience for me to take a lot
Yep.
more responsibility. And obviously, carrying the Goldman name in Brazil was very helpful to expand my relationships and also to help the firm
So let's
be
uh,
successful.
this a number of things happening here. There could be a couple of lessons here for our our listeners. Uh, Taking the risk, I guess, of leaving sort of the mothership, because politics, I would think the politics in bureaucracy, right? In corporate America, be it Goldman Sachs, you want to be close to home, right? Which was 80 Broad, I guess, right? And at the time, I think they're not there anymore. Um, but to leave and then, you know, start up a an office down there, be the CEO at a young age. I mean, that obviously sounds to be, a pretty good opportunity. And then did you also have any mentors or, people that, you kind of say, "Hey, should I," and I'm just putting myself in your shoes. Is it good for me to leave, and begin this startup, if you will, or should I be, sort of, staying in New York? Not that you had much of a choice. It didn't sound so. So maybe you could talk about those from a from somebody who a younger person, early, maybe in their 30s, just like you, who may have this opportunity, or did you do something so these opportunities kind of appeared for you, if you know what I mean?
I would say these opportunities kind of appeared for me. At the time that I was at Goldman in New York, I was very much adapted to my role, and I was a true New Yorker, and I had already my green card that was going to apply for a U.S. Citizenship. So I was making my entire life around the firm in New York and around the opportunities of being a Goldman Sachs banker in New York. But as obviously you understood when I mentioned when they came to me in 2001 was particularly a difficult year in many ways. Um, obviously there was the tragic event of September 11, but there was also a correction in the Nasdaq that happened in 2000 and sort of came deeper in 2001. Brazil was also uh, at difficult times because there was prior to an election when we had the first mandate of President Lula, who at the time was perceived as very left wing and against the market. So there were a lot of things in the equation, and there was basically a demand that I take that challenge and come back to Brazil, my home country, uh, to take a very prestigious position and to run the business in Brazil. So I didn't have much of an option, but I think that even if I had an option, I would probably have picked the one that they offered me in any case because I was young. It was a good opportunity to take more responsibility to basically have a reputation in the market that I was already present, but my profile obviously was elevated dramatically when I took that position, and I was able, quite frankly, I was able to do a very good job because we had a great team at the time in New York. A lot of people decided to come to Brazil with me, and we did very well in the market. And soon after I came in 2003, 2004, Goldman Sachs ranked as number one in M&A in Brazil. We really did a lot of deals, not only high profile deals for multinational companies and privatizations, which was basically what Goldman Sachs wanted me to focus on. But there was an opportunity to start developing relationships with Brazilian families. So I remember that when I came to Goldman, they told me, look, we want to focus on large privatizations and multinational companies in Brazil. And I said, okay, fine, but how do you think we're going to make money? Because privatizations, the fees are very slim, and also with global companies operating in the country, it's not like a big fee pool. So I took the initiative to start approaching Brazilian families. At the time, Brazil was more of a concentrated economy with very few wealthy families. But starting exactly in 2001, 2002, we saw a tremendous development of entrepreneurship in Brazil. And that positioned not only Goldman Sachs, but myself as a banker.
How did that
That
happen, Ricardo? How did that happen? Were there regulations change, or did everybody just started wanting to be entrepreneurs? I mean, that just doesn't happen, right?
No, there were a lot of, as you point out, regulation changes, privatizations, opening of the Brazilian economy, uh, breaking some oligopolies on the financial sector, on the oil sector, and energy sector, many other sectors, changing regulations for investments in the health. And
From Goldman Sachs, you and other people saw that things were changing, like in the government, and they were becoming much more business friendly. I mean, with Brazil, what was Brazil prior to that? Was it more of a closed economy?
it was a very closed economy with very few families basically holding a lot of the GDP of the country. Uh, Also, a lot of oligopolies, oligopolies in the financial sectors. Basically, there were two, three private banks and two or three state-owned banks that controlled close to 95% of financial activity. So it was a series of measures that opened the economy, that changed regulations, that basically privatized companies, allowed for international investments in sectors that were not allowed before. So many measures that created this environment for entrepreneurship that was extremely, extremely healthy for the economy of the country. And today, I can tell you that Brazil is one of the few countries in the world where you see true entrepreneurship. In a way, Brazil is very much like the U.S. You have many companies, companies that are listed. When you look at each and every sector, you see 5, 10 companies that are listed. You see another big number of companies that are private, but are very well structured companies that bring a lot of opportunities for companies like BR Partners, and also for many other companies in the market. So Brazil has many problems, obviously. You always hear, bad noise and things.
Well, we'll talk about some of that bad noise in a second. A few years back, maybe not today, there was the sort of developing countries, developing economies known as the BRICS, right? Brazil, Russia, India, China, and maybe Spain was the S, I think. That's
South Africa.
South Africa. South Africa. Okay, you're right. Okay. So um, I always forget that last one. But Brazil was up there. That was the first. You anchored the that portion of it. Today it's changed, but I see because Russia and China, a lot of things going on over there. But Brazil sort of remains resilient, right? In that, it sounds like you kind of timed it right.
Yes, I mean, for me, it was not much of a choice because I am Brazilian, but I was relatively lucky in terms of the timing because, as I said, exactly at the time that I moved back from the US to Brazil was the time that deregulation was coming, basically opening of the economy. The capital markets were developing more strongly. So all of that together gave me a great opportunity to develop my career in finance, initially with very reputable global firms like Goldman Sachs and Citigroup. And then in 2009, I finally took the initiative to become an entrepreneur myself and to try to build my own business. And, thanks to great partners, great investors, we have been able to succeed on that front as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me go back to it again. Mentors, people you work with, how important was that? Are the people that you still work with are still your mentors?
Yes, I think, at the time, for sure, Goldman Sachs was known for mentorship. And I joined the Goldman Sachs at the time that it was still a private company before it went public in 1999. So there was very much a partnership culture at the time, and a culture of investment banking and client focused business. And I had many many mentors at Goldman. I had people that really helped me a lot, and obviously it was not simple for me to take a big job at the age of 33. It was a great opportunity, but I felt a little bit intimidated at the beginning, and I think counting on different mentors was very very important. People that guided me through what I had to do and what the goals were, and also to keep close to the.
Such a young age, I'm going to ask you something that you may not have contemplated because, very positive entrepreneurs want to look at the sort of the positive and not necessarily the negative. At 33 years old, CEO of Goldman Sachs Brazil, a very young age, I'm sure you had a little bit of fear or trepidation that you might fail and mess up big time, right? I guess you could say that now. Back then, I'm sure, and I remember when I was sure, you wouldn't admit it to even yourself, maybe. But talk about that because there are some people that they look. There's imposter syndrome now. That's what they call it now, imposter syndrome. Like, hey, I don't really belong here, but I'll fake it till I make it. Talk about that and talk about what you went through during that because I think that was probably a critical inflection point in your life.
Absolutely, and I mean, I took the challenge because I thought I was ready for it, and because I wanted to do it, and it was indeed a great opportunity. But obviously, I had my insecurities. I had some fear, and especially at the beginning, fear of having to lead a bigger team and having to represent the firm in the market. So a lot of things come into play. And it was a time of a lot of emotional volatility, I remember. So at sometimes I even thought I could have a little bit of a panic attack and something like that, which
No,
I think is also very normal at the age of 33. But again, I mean, Goldman was at the time a fantastic firm in terms of mentorship, and I had a lot of people that I respected a lot and helped me. And there was.
did you get, I know I'm going down this path, and again, not to be negative, but this is stuff people face, right? Um, Such a young age at the time, CEO of Brazil, envy, jealousy, you probably had team members that were probably older than you. Like what is this? And again, I'm making stuff up here because I'm thinking of what could here's this snot-nosed kid from Brazil. Just because he speaks Portuguese, he's my boss. Right? So any more, I'm off to way off. Tell
No,
me.
I think there's natural peer pressure because it's kind of uncertain how you're going to perform under such conditions and by taking over so much responsibility so early and so quickly.
Yeah.
But Goldman had a very collaborative culture. So in terms of people that worked with me, and um, there were, I think most people were backing me up, and were very respectful and helpful. So that was one of the biggest advantages of the Goldman Sachs culture. It was very friendly, and people used to work in teams very much. And also, it was a good relationship because my direct boss was based in New York. He's a guy that we always got along very well. He would come to Brazil, let's say every couple of weeks or 3 weeks, and I was able to help him and prepare, the ground for him to come down and to meet clients. So it was in a way a win-win situation, but obviously it came with some degree of anxiety and insecurity given the age that I had at the time.
Well, no, I appreciate you sharing. Then it's not like the movies where everybody's at each other's throats, and whether you're a lawyer or something like that, right? They kind of over dramatize that aspect of it. And as you say, the culture of Goldman was more. It seems like more team collaborative. It has to work that way, right? Because you get nobody. What I tell people, and especially our emerging leaders, you can't do an M&A transaction alone. You can't, right? You just, yes, maybe there are personalities, but it's a team collaborative adventure, if you will, right?
Absolutely. That's exactly right.
Well, listen, certainly congratulations. Wanted to certainly talk to, a couple of things about, what's going on in Brazil. What's, sort of, what's going on as a country economically, why people should be, potentially looking to invest in Brazil or sell into Brazil, collaborate with companies in Brazil on an M&A strategic alliance or something like that. And then perhaps talk about, I mean, there was talking about Brazil just recently, you know, X or Twitter, oh, Elon Musk's company, you know, uh, this year was banned from Brazil, from being in Brazil, because and just if you want to, talk through that, and perhaps maybe not specifically about X, but maybe what implications that may mean, because we just talked about, deregulation, and now this seems like there's more regulation coming uh, to Brazil.
Yes.
To Brazil.
Yeah. So let me try to explain in very general terms. First, Brazil is a great country, a big country with over 200 million people. Also great in terms of size of territory, with a lot of opportunities and a lot of companies in the different sectors. So I'm very optimistic about Brazil in general. Obviously, you hear a lot of noise about foreign exchange, about deficit, about Brazil has many of the same problems that other economies also have. So things that need to be digested. But basically, we came out of the pandemic in a relatively good situation in terms of inflation, combination of inflation, growth, deficit, and the economy is still in relatively good shape, growing close to 3% this year with many opportunities. But what I like in Brazil the most is the breadth and depth of the different sectors and how many companies we have in each of those sectors. So, as I said, when you look at different sectors, you see a lot of listed companies, you see a big number of private companies that are also very successful. So that gives a lot of opportunities for people like us, my business, your business, investment banking in general, services in general. But it's a very a broad economy where you can get that in many different sectors. So that's what I like. Also, what you have to remember is that unlike other emerging countries, Brazil has a true democracy. We are a democratic country with a free press, with fair elections, with institutions that work, and that we have to follow those institutions. So that's something that I view as very positive, but sometimes it's not so easy as in other countries where you don't have a democratic system that somebody at the top just decides I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this economic policy. I'm going to privatize this sector. I'm going to do this. And if people don't follow, you put them in jail or you kill them. That's not Brazil. Brazil is a country with very strong institutions. In terms of the X situation, Brazil went through some events that were very similar to the events that the U.S. went through in January 6, 2021. So in January 8th, 2023, there was actually a movement of barbarians and people that vandalized the Congress, and that was interpreted by some as an attempt for a coup or to overturn the elections that had just happened a few weeks before. So very similar to everything that happened in the U.S. Unlike the U.S., Brazil has a more, let's say, interventionist courts. So the Supreme Court of Brazil, they condemned and they judged and they condemned many of the people that were involved in those events and that vandalized the Congress and the Supreme Court. They put them in jail. They established an association of the outgoing president, Bolsonaro, with those events, and basically they impeached him. So he is unable to run for any public position in the coming 8 years. But everything was done, within the letter of the law and under the institutions that Brazil has. In my view, the Supreme Court in Brazil is perhaps too interventionist, and makes too many decisions because it's a constitutional court, is a Supreme Court of the country. But unlike the US, which has a very short constitution, Brazil has a very long constitution with a lot of things that actually do not belong in the constitution. So that created basically a Supreme Court that intervenes in a lot of things. And sometimes they exaggerate. And in my view, banning Twitter or basically assuming that the movement that happened on January 8th was a coup d'etat and that somebody wanted to take power is perhaps, overextending the limits that a constitutional court should reach. But what is important is that everything is done in Brazil with open debate. If you read the Brazilian papers, a lot of people defend the banning of X. A lot of people criticize. There were many editorials in different newspapers condemning that. So that's for the legal system and for the political system to decide. I particularly think they overdid it and they basically are abusing their power as a constitutional court. But that will be decided through the coming events.
Yeah, it sounds like, I mean, from what I read and how you described it, it sounds like the tail wagging the dog, right? So it's, I mean, X Twitter did not, did not cause any of that, right? So, and then, obviously, what are the other things, good things that are not happening because of what X and Twitter, provides as sort of a free speech, marketplace, if you will. But no, thanks for sharing that. It, very, very fascinating.
The extent of free speech and also the fact that there were some court orders banning certain things done by X that were not respected by X. That is what led to this ban, which I think, in my view, is unnecessary and even abusive. But what is important is that this is all being done in light, in daylight, with a lot of criticism and people defending it. And I think politically, it will have a resolution one way or another in a fair way.
To be fair, a little bit, there are a number of people that did get jailed for January 6th. Obviously, in contrast, Donald Trump is is the Republican nominee and is running and, could be the next president again, um, for that. But again, I haven't really looked at the January 8th as much as that it's easy for media and for people to say it was exactly the same thing, and it may or may not have been. I don't know. But, certainly, there are people that apparently at least half the people in the US don't think it's an issue. The other half do think it's an issue, right? So
Exactly. And I think in Brazil it was similar. The events were extremely similar. The consequences were also similar. There were a few people jailed because of that. But I think it's really a matter of behavior of the courts. The courts in Brazil, they tend to be more interventionist, and they tend to, their understanding is that the president and some people close to the president had a connection to those events, and that those people intended to overturn the return of the elections. And when you look at the decisions by the U.S. courts, then they tend to be more cautious, and they tend to allow the political system to clear some of those issues more than the legal system.
Well, listen, that's fascinating. It's, I wonder what the history book's going to say on actually both these incidences, 20, 30 years from now, right? It'd be very, very interesting. Ricardo, this has been a wonderful conversation. I'm glad we talked about Brazil. Brazil is a very, very fascinating country, very similar as it sounds a lot to New York. I learned to United States. I learned a heck of a lot here. Is there anything that I didn't cover that you may want to talk about?
No, I think was a great hour talking to you. Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's a pleasure to do it. I spend a lot of time talking to people at universities, talking to people that want to join our firm also as interns and then as trainees. And it's always great, to share experiences and to share how my career developed, and also.
Well, no, then let me pin on to that. I mean, if someone wants to work either as an intern or get a position at BR Partners, what kind of person do you look for? What are the qualities of that person? I mean, do they all have to graduate Columbia? I mean, tell.
No. I think we take, people from other schools as well, but they have to be from, let's say, the top schools in Brazil and in the world. So we are, constantly having events in the universities in Brazil, and also internationally. We come a lot to the US to visit different universities. So people that are really very curious, that want to develop a career in finance, that are energetic, and they want to have a lot of challenges, and also people that are easy to work with. I think that one of the things that BR Partners.
And so you're hiring, you want to hire a lot of people. Okay. All right. Terrific. Well, listen, I look forward to meeting you again. I mean, you've been to our events maybe about over a decade ago. We did a lot with Brazil back, a little bit more than 10 years ago, I think. And it sounds like you guys and the country is going strong. So congratulations, Ricardo.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. We hope you enjoyed this episode and learned something new from it. If you have any questions or comments for us or any of our guests, please feel free to leave them in the podcast platform of your choice, or send us an email at editor@maadvisor.com. We would love to hear from you and get your feedback. And if you haven't done so already, please follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and subscribe to our M&A Alerts newsletter at the links in the description or on our website at www.maadvisor.com. This will help you stay updated on the latest M&A interviews and trends, and support our podcast to grow and reach more listeners like you. This is Roger Aguinaldo, the creator and founder of the M&A Advisor. Thank you for tuning in and being part of our M&A Advisor community. Until next time, stay safe and happy dealing.